Hi everybody, and welcome to Creating Space to Sing. My name is Stefanie Weigand, and I am a grade 7 through 12 vocal and theater arts educator here in Central Vermont. I'm also the Youth R&R for ACDA East and the Eastern Region representative on NAFME's Council for Choral Education. Today we're going to time travel a little bit back to March when everybody's world kind of got turned on its head. We'll remember that our events just were getting canceled one right after the other. Morale was at an all-time low. And I'm not just talking about the students, teachers as well. Yours, I know mine was. Our songs, our repertoire, were feeling pretty meaningless, I know, for our canceled concerts. Lucky for us, we had some compositions from some student compositions from a different canceled event that really became our saving grace. And they pulled our singers together through some community building activities and conversations. Our remote rehearsals started to be built around them. We had a final product and assessment that was selfless and exciting and really brought out the empathy of our students. Now, this is the 6th year that composition has taken a big place in a huge project in my choral classroom and in our music department in general. And I really believe, especially after this last spring, that we can use composition as a learning tool to impart new meaning to our singers' work and as a huge motivational tool and an opportunity to create more opportunities to sing, especially when large culminating performances are no longer present. So the agenda for today, we'll talk about our spring concert and how our world got turned upside down. I'll give you a little sneak peek into my classroom so you can understand where I'm coming from. And we'll talk about our big composition project at my school, which is called Opus. I'll give you background information on that and let you know how it works so you can see what we do in my classroom. And then I'll let you know how it really came to the rescue for us and how we used it to impart new meaning in our classroom. So you can see how composition created these new opportunities for singing in the chorus when it seemed like we would not be able to sing together again. Then at the end, we'll take a quick look into the fall, which is coming up real quick, and we'll see how I'm gonna look at composition and how I plan to use these lessons and other lessons as we jump back into the classroom in just a little bit over a month. And hopefully you'll be able to come away with some ideas for how you can use composition to create new opportunities for singing and use composition as a learning tool for your vocal students when we hop back into the classroom this year. All right, let's get started. Okay, I'm gonna hop out of the screen so we can really focus on the material together. And here we go. So we know there aren't too many things that can rival the feeling of the buzz of a concert. Maybe one of those things is the buzz of your classroom the day after the concert. I know for me, that is one of the more exciting days of the year. It's such a great feeling. The kids walk in, they're still buzzing from the night before. They're so excited. Even when the room is quiet, we work on concert reflections while they are still feeling that buzz. And so the room is quiet and they're writing and you can feel it. It's almost electric. And as those reflections are coming in, we're sorting music, they're handing in their music, they're talking about it. There's always that next question, that inevitable question that is both exciting and almost you dread it because they're already moving on to the next thing. And the question is, what are we singing next? So we made the big announcement for our next concert and everyone was really excited. We're going to do a Broadway Pops concert at the end of the year. The room was electric, and all of a sudden the world just started spinning. It sped up. We 2 days later went on our winter break, which for our school is the very end of February going into March. We went right from that break into the ACDA Eastern Region Conference. We came back from the conference, and there were these rumors of schools closing in other states. There were talks about maybe like taking some time here in Vermont. By the end of that first week back, we had a faculty meeting at the end of the day Friday about mitigating risk at school. And then by the end of the weekend, school was shut down for a 3-week temporary building closure. We had 2 days of in-service to plan for those 3 weeks. And by April, all of our buildings were shut down for the remainder of the year. The world went from spinning like a tornado to a full stop. And we all just wondered, what do we do now? It's really tough to stay engaged when you don't know what the end game is, when you don't know where you're going. And I'm not just talking about our kids. My inbox, and I'm sure yours was too, just flooded with emails. We know as choral music educators, we have really special relationships with our kids. We are like family to a lot of them. We talk about how we're feeling. We talk about our daily lives, our home lives. We have these kids in our lives for years sometimes. I know by the time my students graduate, they're with me for 4 to 6 years. Some of them, if they've taken lessons from me in elementary school, some of them it's been 10 years that I've known them. So it's a different kind of relationship than maybe some of the teachers who have had these students for a semester, or if they're lucky, a year. So I think it is a little bit different, the relationship that we have with our students. My email from these students was constant, especially at the beginning. What are we going to do? When am I going to see you again? Our class meetings were once a week. They were optional. Not all of our students were coming to the classes. And at first, especially when we weren't sure what was going on, they were definitely more of a therapy session than a rehearsal session, for sure. The students were losing focus, and not just in music, all across the board, at home, at school, with friends, with family. And we didn't have a concert season anymore. The kids were wondering, what's the point? Why are we learning this music? And to be honest, I wasn't really sure either. It felt kind of meaningless to me to have this folder full of Broadway Pops tunes if we weren't going to have a concert. Sure, the songs were kind of fun, but it just didn't feel right. It didn't feel right. And if I'm being honest, during that 3 weeks of temporary closure, I was doing a little bit of planning and knowing that the possibility did exist for the rest of the year to be shut down, and trying to figure out what we could do if that was going to be case. So my students had these student compositions in their folders. I put PDFs of them in my students' Google Classroom. They had paper copies in their Choral folders. I just had this kind of icky feeling that I'm sure many of you had too when our building shutdowns were called temporary at the beginning. Certainly something in our guts told us, right, that this isn't going to be temporary. So I stocked those folders with a few extra things, including those student compositions. And oh, I'm really glad that I did, because they saved us. We probably all did this, going into your calendar and just pressing delete, delete, delete on all of these events, right? Oh man, sometimes it felt really good. You were like, oh, I don't have to do that anymore. But it was heartbreaking to press delete on some of our favorite events at school. The performing arts calendar started to look pretty trim. But I was about to press delete on one particular event, and I realized that this could be it. This could be what we were looking for. And, you know, we often are learning our music in chorus for performance. That's kind of what we do, right? We're learning our music for concert, we're learning our music for a festival. But it seemed like a great time to take a step back and just learn the music for ourselves. Why not? We do that all the time. You and I, we just learn music because we feel like it. We don't necessarily have a performance coming up. We just decide that we really want to learn this song because I like it, or because it would be fun, or because it makes me feel good, because I just want to, because music is what I like to do. So what a great time to just learn some music for ourselves. So I'm going to start to talk about this composition project that I do at my school, along with my band colleague, Chris. This is our 6th year working on this big composition project with all of our band and chorus students. But before I do that, I actually have to talk about this larger organization in the state of Vermont called Music Comp, because we totally stole their model and are using it in our school. So I can't really talk about what we do without talking about Music Comp, because they are everything that we are, and we would be pretty much nowhere without them. We owe everything that we do to them, for sure. Plus, they're pretty awesome, so I definitely want to share their model with you. So Music Comp has been around for a long time. They used to be called the Vermont MIDI Project. If you've ever heard of them before, they are fantastic. They're a nonprofit Vermont organization that partners young musicians with a professional composer mentor. They go through the process of starting and completing their own original piece of music online. Through this partnership, they really allow all students of all grade levels to realize their potential. It's really incredible. They will take you through from just like a 2-measure idea, whatever that little tiny spark of an idea is, into a full piece of music. And for the teachers, they offer professional development opportunities for in-service teachers, for grad students throughout the summer and in the school year as well. They work with students in the classroom. They will work with your students if they have a particular project that they're working on that you feel like you just can't really help them and you need a little bit more of an assist. A number of years ago, I had a student who had started this choral composition as part of his midterm project, and he wrote about 32 bars of it for his midterm project, and it was phenomenal. And he decided that he wanted to keep going with it. And as this project kind of snowballed and he kept working on it, I realized that I personally could no longer offer him the support that he really needed on this incredible composition. So I reached out to Matt at Music Comp, the executive director, and I asked him for help. And they wound up partnering together. Matt was his mentor, and they had such a great time, and he offered so much great advice on this piece, and it wound up just becoming one of the most incredible 8-part choral pieces that I've heard from any of my students ever. So that's one of the things that they do. Every year, they have an Opus project. They're on Opus 35. They have students who bring work to them. Again, it can start as just a 2-measure spark of an idea, and they're mentored through over a couple of months. And then at the end of it, their board chooses a number of students to have their work performed in a live concert by professional musicians after spending the day in rehearsals and attending workshops. And it's just incredible to see these students in elementary, middle, and high school see their work just blossom and come to life before their eyes from, something on the computer that has a, MIDI sound to something that is real and coming out of a flute or a violin or out of the piano or out of someone's voice. It's just beautiful to see that happen, and so inspiring and motivating for these kids. Really, really beautiful. So they will work with teachers and students to help you develop this program for yourself in your own classroom, which is what they've done for us. So now that you understand a little bit about their organization, now you can understand what we will do in our classroom. We are only on Opus 6, not 35. This was our 6th year of working on this project. At Harwood, at my school, all of our students in grades 7 through 12 in band and chorus compose every year. It might not be the most amazing thing in the world, especially in grades 7 and 8 when we're just getting started. The students in band start by composing for their own instrument so that they can be writing simple melodies and then sit down right away and play it, making sure that it's something that they can have access to right away. Students in chorus will often write a piano melody or something simple that they can sing in a range that works for them. And then as they get older, they can start adding more instruments. They might write for a string quartet or a brass quintet. And as they advance, we will often send them off to partner with music comp mentors and participate in the music comp Opus program so that they kind of advance out of Harwood's Opus and move into music comp's Opus, which is a little bit more difficult to get involved in, and then they get one-on-one mentoring from music comp. We use the Inside Music curriculum through Music First. which uses Note Flight Learn. That Inside Music curriculum, I'm actually going to talk about that just for a few minutes in the 1 p.m. slot today as well. It's incredible. It has 3 different levels, beginner, intermediate, and advanced, differentiates really, really well. So my students use video lessons from that all 6 years that they're with us. We also are really lucky through some grants that we've gotten over the years with Vermont Arts Council that we're able to partner with some mentors through Music Comp so that some of our local composers can actually come to our classroom and work with students, and can also work remotely. They can chat with our students and give online feedback through Note Flight's commenting feature and sharing scores and things like that. So it does work virtually as well, which is, of course, the world we're all living in right now. So it is transferable. It doesn't have to be having a local composer work with you. It doesn't have to be something that has to happen in person, for sure. Towards the end of the year, our students that have completed works, because let's be real, not all of our students in band and chorus, grades 7 through 12, are going to finish a piece of music during this, right? That's kind of a crazy expectation. But the students with completed works have their pieces performed in a concert with live professional musicians in early May every year. And that often will include some students whose work was not chosen to be performed by Music Comp. Since Music Comp is a statewide organization, and now since they've gotten a little bit bigger, we'll often include some students from out of state as well. Not all of our students who are mentored by Music Comp will have their works chosen to be performed through them. So sometimes some of my students who are mentored through Music Comp won't have their work chosen to be performed, and then we'll just do it. So it's a great backup system. Our students that day, this is my favorite day of the year, by the way, big Broadway Pops concert. That's fine and everything, but this is my favorite day. Our students that day spend time in rehearsal with their musician or musicians. This is one of the funniest things, because you see a young student musician telling professionals, no, I was actually thinking that maybe you didn't do that right, or I was thinking maybe that should go a little bit faster, or you're playing that a little too loud. It's great. Definitely something you should see. Those rehearsals are fantastic. The musicians give the students feedback, which is even more meaningful. And then we have a concert after school, open to the public. And every year, we typically have 20 to 25 new works premiered by our students, which is pretty incredible. Now, I struggled with writing this little paragraph on this slide. Realizing we still matter seemed silly, right? But it's real. It's real. It's so important, especially in the spring. It did sound silly, but we're in a world where our performances and so much of what we do is defined by concerts, is defined by performance and applause and receiving that feedback from an audience, and then it was gone. And we weren't getting that anymore. And being in a room with all of these other people, and like I said, it was just over. And that was really difficult. And it was hard to remember what was important about what we do for a while. So realizing that what we do still matters and that we still matter as individual singers and as an ensemble was really, really important. Our ensemble matters even when we're not together. The connection that we have, the relationships that we have, really, really important. So now we're going to tie this all together. I mentioned before that my students had these two compositions in their folders. These student compositions were done by two of my 10th graders who started writing with me when they were in 7th grade. So this was their fourth opus project with me. This year, since they had been writing for a while and they actually really enjoyed it and were advancing pretty quickly, I sent them along with 7 others to music comp this year to be mentored through them instead of through my school project. Their 2 pieces happened to not be chosen for performance through music comp. So we plan to perform their pieces through our school opus concert. The pieces, had we not gone remote, the pieces would already be shared with the class anyway, for a number of reasons. It's great to share these pieces with the class so that our composers, our student composers can hear what is going on with their pieces. They can make some other last minute edits. It's really hard to hear what's happening in a vocal piece when all you have are the like beeps and boops of a piano MIDI sound on note flight, or even worse, the oohs and ahs of the vocal MIDI sound in note flight, which is just really not helpful. So as wonderful as note flight is and as incredibly helpful as it is as a tool, nothing compares to hearing real voices sing your music. So sharing this work with the chorus has a million advantages. So having these composers be able to hear their work is incredible. And they can make little changes and be like, oh, you know what, that worked on the computer, but boy, does that really not work for real life. And having that transition from computer song to live singing is really, really helpful for these composers' ears. It also serves as incredible inspiration for the rest of their classmates who were wrapping up their own Harwood Opus 6 projects. When they get to hear their peers' songs and say, wow, listen to these awesome things that my friends are writing. That's really incredible. I can be really proud of them and inspired to do great things and wrap up my own work. It's just really, really helpful for them to hear each other's pieces. And since these were essentially finished while the rest of the class was on their own different timeline of finishing their own pieces, it was great to have them in hand. So these are my 10th grader interpretations of what it was like to hear their songs, not on the computer. It was cool to hear it come together from 3 things of a piano on a computer to actually hearing people singing it. I thought that was really, really interesting and really exciting. Man, what a difference between MIDI sounds and live singing, even in virtual rehearsal. It was cool to have that, how I originally heard it in my head, kind of come to life and become a reality. You know, Ali also talked about um, how interesting it was in our remote rehearsals to already know her song and be in the quote unquote room when we were learning it. And she and her peer Claudia were often helping. They would help to explain what their thinking was, or help others understand a rhythm or how something went in their song. It was great to have them in the rehearsal as we were learning these songs over Zoom. Um, it was really, really cool to say to the rest of the class, hey, if you have any questions about this song, you don't just have to ask me. You can ask your friends. You can ask the composer of this song. Because guess what? Here they are. Not just in our Zoom rehearsal, but shoot them an email. You know, hey, I'm having trouble with, you know, page 2 of this piece. This is your song. Do you think you could help me out? So instantly, the helpers are increased, right? So we have mentors, we have peer feedback. Um, it's just it's an incredible community network. Um, it's lovely, and there was a lot of laughter. There was a difficult rhythm, a section of rhythm in Ali's piece, and we had a good laugh about it. And one of the kids was like, "Why did you do this to us?" It was just really lovely, and it's just really nice to have these moments in rehearsal, especially this past spring, where we can just laugh um, and have some fun together. Now, it's great for these two kids who wrote the songs, right? Of course, it makes them feel really good. That's pretty obvious. They're probably pretty proud of having their own pieces of music sung by others and put in the spotlight. But you might be thinking about everybody else in the class. What about them? They're not in the spotlight. How do they feel? And I thought about that. And my response to that is, you know, students in general, and honestly, especially choral students, I know I'm biased, but let me say, especially choral students are innately empathetic and caring and compassionate, and they want to see their friends do amazing things. They're so proud of their friends. They were so excited to see these pieces come together. They loved it. And that's not to say that it was perfect. It wasn't perfect. Nothing about the spring was perfect, right? There were frustrations. There were times it didn't work out. Uh, you know, I'd be lying if I said it was like, this was the solution to everything. But it was exciting. And we were caring for each other. And especially because there was no performance, no one had a problem with that. They were very understanding. These were new, brand new pieces of music. They were looking for a place to become. These new pieces of music were finding their voice. These new young composers were finding their voice. We were all finding our voices. Our ensemble needed to find our voice again. And we were getting to do that together. This worked for us. It didn't matter that we didn't get to have a concert. We were learning this music for ourselves. And you know what? Even better than that, we were learning this music for our friends. That was more important than a concert. The compositions for us became tools for learning. We had, and maybe they didn't even know, so we had great conversations about rhythm, especially during that one part, about finding your notes for entrances. It was really lovely. Uh, and we built community, and we were there for each other, and we had some laughs. Students are empathetic, caring, and compassionate. They will do this work for each other. Here's how we used it. We sang together in our Zoom meetings, which were once a week. I broke it down into shorter sections because we know that it's hard it's impossible to really sing together, right? So I sat at the piano, everyone was muted, we sang together like that. You can export the MIDI tracks from Noteflight. So once we got longer pieces learned, you can actually sing along to that, which is a great tool. I recorded some lessons. I broke each song into sections and recorded video lessons so that my students could sing at home with me in a video, and they could practice on their own, not just using a MIDI rehearsal track, but actually with some guidance from me, kind of like a video voice lesson, a little bit like that. And then we also used the Music First audio recorder in the Music First classroom to record vocal assessments so that I could assess their learning over time on these songs. The great thing, again, about these songs, these student compositions, is that they were both really short. So my students actually all recorded both songs completely from start to finish because they were both very short. You know, they're not like 20-page Dan Forest tunes or something. They were both like 3-4 pages long. So they could record the whole thing start to finish, both songs, and I could hear the whole thing as their assessment. So it's really, really lovely. Lots to do, lots of choices. So once the year was over, I actually got to take a step back from total crisis mode, and I was like, oh my gosh, now that my brain is working again, I actually remember that I use composition as a learning tool all the time. I need to start planning for back to school. So we're taking a little look back to plan for the future. We talk about composition and theory. We can use composition as a theory learning tool. This works for really any ensemble or classroom music too, honestly. It's really, really accessible because you can differentiate to suit the needs of your students. You can teach song form very, very easily. Your advanced students can get into the study of timbre or styles of music, instrument ranges, once they really get the feel for it. If you're using a cloud-based program like Flat for Education or Noteflight, Your students can pair up and share their scores with each other and give each other feedback. Or, like sometimes I do in my classroom, my older, more experienced students actually mentor the beginner students, and they help them figure out the platform, or they help them with the theory themselves. It's a great way to share that, and it helping to teach theory, of course, helps with the learning, right? So your older, more advanced students get a lot out of it as well. Simple composition exercises are such a great way to learn a new software program. So if you have students who have never used Noteflight before, I usually get them starting on paper, which is what you see on the left side of the screen. A simple exercise, whether it's a rhythm or writing a simple melody, whatever the exercise is, and then you transcribe it into the new program like Noteflight. That way there's less, there's a little less thinking going on, but they're still getting to use the program. We move on to composition and sight reading. This is not a beginning of the year thing. This is something for students that are already a little familiar with Noteflight, already familiar with the skills necessary for sight reading. You can scaffold this by using Sight Reading Factory, which is another program that I use with my students. You can scaffold by playing some improv games, like some call and response. This is typically one of our first official melody writing assignments after maybe lesson 1 of the Inside Music curriculum, which is all about writing a simple melody, steps and skips and things like that. We'll often model this after the requirements of our Vermont All-State Melodic Sight Reading, so that for our students there's something really tangible to use, especially for the older students. This gives them a real outcome, right? They have something to practice when it's all over. Our more advanced students might choose to use the intermediate or advanced video lessons in Inside Music instead of the beginner. This is not their first time through the assignment. The completed assignments then can be put into a class document and shared with everybody in the class as a practice tool, because then they have tons of sight reading exercises. Boom, just like that. Or they can also be numbered and assigned as sight reading assessments. And that's like another learning tool all of a sudden that you have. Now you have 20, 30, 40, 50 4 or 8 measure sight reading melodies. Throw some numbers on them and assign them to folks in your class. Or even better, let your students choose one, right? So here's a big question that I get. Why composition? And I get it. It seems like an extra step. You're teaching composition in order to teach this other thing. It seems like maybe extra work, but you're not. You're not teaching composition in order to teach this other skill. You're teaching another skill through composition. And here's why. 3 huge reasons to use composition as a learning tool. Creativity. Because yes, we're being creative in our classrooms. We are. Most of the time, we're being creative in the music classroom. And there's only so much creativity that's happening in the ensemble classroom when we're singing or playing someone else's music. When you're writing your own music, it's just another story. We're really being creative. And through the National Core Arts Standards, we know that we need to teach create. We need to teach this standard. So let's do it. And let's not do it as a sole standard. That seems like a little bit of a waste of time. Let's teach creativity while our students are learning all of these other essential tools for being a well-rounded musician. Expressivity, I don't think I really need to expand on that too much. Composing is the ultimate form of expressing yourself. How are you feeling? Oh, I'm gonna write about it. Let's give our students an outlet. Lord knows they have a lot to be feeling about right now. There's a lot to express themselves about in this moment of time. I know I would rather have my students write some music about their big feelings than go out and express themselves in some other dangerous way. And you can make a big impact through writing music. And I would love to hear my students' thoughts through song. What a powerful tool we are giving our students. And finally, ownership. It's theirs. It is theirs. It is one of the very few things that our students get to call their own in school. It's not someone else's story. It's not someone else's book. It's not someone else's anything. It's their own. Huge reasons to teach composition as a learning tool. So oftentimes when we talk about using composition in the classroom, I get a lot of teachers who say, well, I'm not a composer, or I don't know a lot about composition, so I feel a little nervous about teaching composition. And I totally get that. It's a little scary, especially if you feel like you're not a composer. I understand. And I say, it's okay. It's all right to feel a little bit nervous. So here are maybe some tips. One is to start small. Like let's not jump in and the project that we've got going at our school, where all of our students and all of our ensembles are writing every single year, is awesome, but that is not for everybody. Right? That's a huge project. And we did not start that way. That evolved from much smaller projects. So don't feel pressure to do something as crazy as that. Start small. Small, short melodies are great. Those are great tools. Think about what you want your singers to know and then work backwards from there. Backwards design. I want them to know this about theory. Great. How can we do that through composition? Reach out to some local composers for help. Maybe they can mentor online. You know, we talk about sharing no flight scores with them. Maybe they can Zoom into one of your classes or offer some kind of workshop with your students. Talk about their own work. Share one of their pieces with you. Maybe you can learn part of one of their pieces and they can talk about how they wrote that piece as inspiration. Explore some flipped classroom curriculum like Inside Music. It's really incredible. It was written a few years ago, but let me tell you now, the way that things are with remote learning, flipped classroom style is fantastic. And finally, don't think you have to know everything before you jump in. It's okay to do some of the learning with your students. You don't have to be perfect. So finally, here are some of the resources that we talked about. Flat for Education, Noteflight, and Sight Reading Factory are all software that I use through my Music First classroom. The Music First audio recorder is just part of the classroom. Inside Music is premium content that I have through Music First. And Music Comp is that organization that I spoke about earlier that does online mentoring for student composers. So everybody, thank you so much for spending this time with me today. I really appreciate it. My email is right up there. Really, honestly, feel free to email me anytime. I know that sounds crazy, but I mean it. Email me anytime, and I look forward to hearing from you. Best of luck, everyone. Stay safe, stay healthy, enjoy the rest of the day.